Hi, welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. Sam Mirejovsky here, your host. Great to be here with you folks. My goodness, it's only Tuesday and already so much is going on. I have to say, last night I heard, that the map people, I don't think they call them cartographers now, but, the different map people were getting on board with the rename, the rebrand. Gulf of Mexico is so yesterday, of course. Now it's Gulf of America. So I went and I immediately had to. I looked on Google Maps. And sure enough, there it was. I scrolled over, went over. Plain as day, the Gulf of America. Now, yeah, I went over, by the way, Robbie, I went immediately to Apple Maps, and at least as of last night, Apple Maps had not caught on to the rename. So they still have Gulf of Mexico. But, I told you this was going to happen. I told you that Google would do this. And when you look at it, it is, I think, one of the clearest manifestations of how, different Trump's second term is. Brett Baer, when Trump sat down for the Super Bowl interview, Brett Baer asked him, and another number of, reporters and folks have asked, Trump this, well, how is Trump 45 different from Trump 47? We notice that you are, speaking to Trump, that Trump is, moving ahead at breakneck speeds, that this administration just feels differently. And Trump's general answer, like what he told Brett Baer, was, look, I came to Washington in 2017. I was a New York guy. I didn't really know anything about D.C. I picked some good people. I picked some bad people. And I got burned. That's a rough paraphrase of the answer that he gives. But I have to add, there's literally, if in 2017, 3 weeks into his presidency, Trump had said, oh, we're going to rename the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. There is no universe in which Google would have obediently, followed suit. And they did it quickly, by the way. I understand that the government maps, that they went into the database and they said, this is now named this, and that Google, sort of has to follow this, but they don't have to, right? They could, and a previous iteration of a Trump tech relationship would have yielded a standoff, and Google would have gone up and said, no, you know what, we're not following this, and we're ignoring the presidential order and the governmental decree. But they haven't done this, and they haven't done it because there is a radically different relationship between Trump and tech. And there's also a radically different relationship between Trump and the country. The mood is just different. The vibe is different. Everything today is so much better than it was 8 years ago. It almost, and I've said this before, it almost makes me grateful that Trump wasn't reelected in 2020, that the Democrats did everything that they did, and that it was just enough to wake people the hell up and get on the Trump train, get on board to making America great again, which is really, right now, I'm witnessing an incredible revival. So is it really about the name? Does the Gulf of America versus Gulf of Mexico doesn't matter? Now, look, I maintain that this is a chit that is being traded. Trump is doing something that costs nothing, but can be traded to Mexico for something of real value. And so he's creating a bargaining chip that is zero cost. Okay. Well, that's my take on it, and I'll stick with that. But what's beautiful is that everybody's playing along, and they're playing along because Trump has so much more legitimacy this time around. And by the way, the opposition's been discredited, and that's a huge, part of this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Tulsi Gabbard and the vote last night, and the backstamp by Bernie Sanders and the left now, the real leftists out there, the rank and file Democrats, some of them are seething over this because, of course, Tulsi Gabbard was somebody who stuck her neck out for Bernie Sanders. A little bit of history, right? You kind of understand. She was a person that basically gave up her position in the Democratic Party when Hillary was trying to steal, ultimately did steal, the nomination in 2016. And it was Tulsi that stood up and supported Bernie. The left, the left right now, the Trump opposition is still stuck in that never Trump is bad, single gear, just grinding at high RPMs, but with very little forward movement. And in doing this and continuing with this nonsense, I really think that we are watching really a wholesale, destruction of the Democrat brand. So all of this is happening just in real time. Trump is ascendant. He's got, again, it's a small thing, right? Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico. A lot of people are saying, well, Sam, what does it really matter? Well, it matters that he got Google to change the name on the map. He brought him to heel. This is the same tech company that owns YouTube. This is the same tech company that has gone after conservatives. This is the same tech company that has made it their mission to destroy Trump. And now they're just, okay, all right, we're gonna change the name on the map. Trump said so. It's astounding what a turnaround has happened in a few short years. So there's that. I also, of course, want to get into this continuing lawfare because it's also another element of using the same playbook. So Democrats, we talked about this yesterday over the weekend. The first injunction was put in by a judge in New York City. And, this is against the Treasury, Doge and the Treasury. And basically the injunction, there's going to be an appeal. There's another hearing that's going to be held on Friday, by the way, on Valentine's Day. So we'll see what happens there. But this injunction is just completely absurd. And there will be many of these injunctions, and they will further erode the public trust in our judiciary. And when people say to me, but Sam, what's going to happen with the Supreme Court? Because you keep saying, and I've gotten a number of emails, I'm trying to get back to you all about this, but a number of emails saying, Sam, don't have so much faith in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, is going to rule. You got people like Roberts on there, and you've got some other conservative disappointments, right? Coney Barrett, right? So the Supreme Court may not come to Trump's rescue. And I look at this and I think, and I want to get into this in some detail in today's show, because I think that, you got to understand that the Supreme Court, Roberts is a political person, right? He understands the politics of the Supreme Court, and for the Supreme Court to maintain legitimacy, but Roberts is a guy that believes that he really doesn't want to go too firmly against the will of the people. Hobbes was a big deviation from that. This is the case that, nullified Roe v. Wade. Hobbes is a deviation, but if you go back to the Sebelius case, which is the Supreme Court case deciding that, in fact, Obamacare was a tax and therefore a legitimate law, even though it compelled you and me, Americans, to buy a product, to buy an insurance product, and we were penalized if we didn't buy it, which is just completely unconstitutional. But if you remember in this decision, one of the things that was said, and I believe the opinion was written by Roberts, one of the things that was said was that, listen, we don't get involved. The people have decided, this is, put in place by Congress, it's a tax, basically they punted. And the punt, this is my point here, the punt today in February of 2025, is to support the guy that got a majority of the vote, that won 7 swing states, and that did that in spite of the fact that there was a massive amount of litigation and criminal prosecution lodged at him, meaning the people who voted for Trump, and a lot of people did in a lot of states, did not believe that the process playing out in the courts against Trump was legitimate. And a Supreme Court justice, the Chief Justice here, John Roberts, and other justices too, leave the crazy leftist Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson, for example, out of this. But the other justices, including John Roberts, who personally detests Trump, fears an erosion to the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. Because when, at the end of the day, right, the Supreme Court doesn't have an army. The Supreme Court doesn't have a police force. The Supreme Court relies on its legitimacy, on its power to be enforced by the executive branch of government. Read the president. If they get to a point where people just ignore what they say, they lose power. And so here, Trump and the Chief Justice, John Roberts, make for some very strange bedfellows. All right, we're going to get into this because they need each other, right? Trump, the Department of Justice, can decide to enforce the law or not. That's the power of the prosecution, right? That's the power of being the chief law enforcement officer of the land. So the Supreme Court, I think, is going to be it will have no choice but to back Trump against the legislative branch, else it risks eroding its own power. See, the Democrats do not think a step or two ahead. These people are wired so basically, it blows my mind. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Lots to cover. As you can see, a lot of intertwining issues today. Beautiful Tuesday, February 11th. Be right back after this.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Sam at samandashlaw.com is my email. I do check my email here periodically throughout the show. I do it during the breaks, folks. So I go through the emails, see if there's something that I can respond to, and I try to get back to each and every one of you as best as I can. And of course, please do follow me on Twitter, formerly known as, now we call it X. And a lot of you are on there right now, and it's great because you'll DM me, you'll send me a message on there, and I try to respond to those as well. At What's Right Sam is my handle. Okay, I want to, as part of this analysis of the future of the Democratic Party, I'm looking at these confirmation battles, and sort of at a very high level. When Biden came into office, when Obama became president and remained president for 8 years and had to get, folks into his various cabinet positions, in and out and replaced, etc., Republicans, by and large, as a group, tend to support the president, even if he is not of their party. And, you go back 4 years and look at, clowns like Lloyd Austin, defense secretary. How many confirmation votes did he get? A majority? I mean, a majority of Republicans voted for him, right? And a complete dingleberry, all right? And he proved to be a terrible defense secretary and was obviously not compatible with the ideology of most Republicans. But the Republicans, this is the problem. Republicans, when they're in government, for the most part, they get really caught up in doing the right thing. They get really caught up in, in parliamentary procedure and in decency and collegiality. And so it encourages Republicans to do, the B word, which is to be bipartisan. And the What's Right show definition of bipartisan, of course, is when Republicans do what Democrats want. It's that simple. So these Republicans are all running around, and they've done this for years, right? They a Democrat president comes in, or they go into the minority, in whether it's in the Senate or in the House, and they just immediately roll over. And then, astonishingly, when perhaps they do have a Republican in the White House, and they do have a majority in Congress, they still roll over. They still kowtow to the Democrats. The best example of this, and when people ask, and Trump should say this, right? Trump should mention this in every single interview. I was mentioning the Brett Baer interview, Super Bowl Sunday, and more of it has been released now. And there's a part where Brett asks, Trump about what's different between, his first term in office and this second one, which seems, even to the most casual observer, as one that has a far faster pace, is much more productive, et cetera. And Trump, mentions that he has better people around him, which certainly is true. But the other part of it is he doesn't have Paul Ryan as the gosh dang, leader of the House, Speaker of the House. Republicans had a majority in 17. We had a speaker, but he was actively working to undermine Trump. It's wild. In other words, we were eating our own as Republicans. And this is something, by the way, Republicans are very, very good at, okay? Well, because the consensus was in the Capitol was that Trump was a fluke. That was one of the key differences. People, if you talked to politicos, and I did at the time, and I remember the story, the difference, for example, in 16, when I went to the Republican convention versus when I went in 2024, right? So the 8 years later. In 16, most of the Republican kind of operatives that were there were all bemused by the fact that Trump was the nominee, and they just were there for the fun. They were there for the party, and they were like, okay, and I'll see you in 4 years. We're going to get a better candidate. Everybody spoke in those terms. Very few people showed up at the Republican convention in 2016 to say, oh, we're here for Trump, make America great. We're doing it. When I went there, and I went there as a radio guy, I was a host out in LA at the time, and I went out there, and I was just blown away blown away that they were basically, nobody there was into Trump. I was like the only person. Yeah, me and Roger Stone, okay? Like, I remember Roger Stone walking around. He was obviously a loyalist, but, that's just, that's my point. So the party's radically different. Trump has different, levels of support. Now, in the Democratic Party right now, what's going on is this wholesale fight against Trump's nominees. They're trying desperately. They're wooing the Republican moderates like Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. By the way, it's starting to wear thin, and I am convinced that Republicans calling Murkowski, Republicans calling Susan Collins in Alaska and Maine, respectively, is making an enormous difference. I think that these two ladies intend to stay in office, and they both have elections coming up, re-elections coming up, primaries coming up, and it's a battle Republicans intend to bring. It's an all or nothing. Give Trump his people or else. But on the Democrat side, look at Fetterman, right? Fetterman said no to RFK Jr. He said no to RFK Jr. RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard are both Democrats. And not just Democrats, they're both independent Democrats with enormous appeal within the Democratic Party. But the Democrats would rather stick it to Trump and put a shiv in Trump than to support their own people, even people, and this is where we're going to get to this, like Tulsi Gabbard, when it comes to Bernie and her history with Bernie Sanders. I'm going to mention this when we come back. I got to take the break now. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, The What's Right Show, is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Okay, forgive me. I'm going to do a little bit of inside baseball here because so many of you have reached out to me about this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Welcome to the What's Right Show. So I'm watching the Super Bowl on Sunday, and I start getting all the texts. Did you see the law firm commercial for one of your competitors? Right? I'm not going to mention anybody here by name. And so everybody's texting me about this. And yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, I saw these, I saw these ads. I've seen them before. And I guess, well, okay, so I'm bringing this up because everybody that's texting me is like, these ads are so tacky. Like, what the hell is this personal injury lawyer who is supposed to be representing, human beings in their, time of need? What is he doing in this ad, in a massively expensive luxury car, driving around, the city of Las Vegas? And, what am I supposed to tell? I mean, how do I respond to this? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I think it's comical and I think it's in poor taste. And I think it, is good for the Sam & Ash brand because, of course, if you haven't figured it out, I'm the Sam of Sam & Ash. And I do care about marketing and I'm interested in it. It fascinates me. But like, there's like no planet on which I would, drive I don't know what it is, a $500,000 car, in my TV ad. I just wouldn't do it. So I've gotten all your emails. I'm trying to respond to them. But I wanted to. Yes, I've seen the ad. It's and there were a couple kind of weird ones during the Super Bowl. Everybody's trying to outdo each other. It's an interesting thing, this personal injury market, and here in Vegas, it's weird. I'm gonna say it's weird. I'm saying that as somebody who came here, it's been 6 years now, and got here in 2019, and and I was like, oh, wow, this is a relatively small market. There sure are a lot of attorneys that are marketing. And I thought to myself, right, I go, well, I guess they need one more. And I looked at Ashley and I said, well, I guess they need two more. So here we are. But I took a look around and I when you look at, and let me explain a little bit about advertising, how these things work. You kind of have an idea of, I had an idea of what I wanted our brand to be. And in my previous firm, it was, I was not the advertising partner. I was the silent partner, 50% of the firm, but it was my partner that was the media figure. And it started to get obnoxious. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about it. And so I wanted our firm to be wholesome because it's who I am. It's just, normal people. And we went through, I remember this as an exercise when we looked at the Vegas market and we took every law firm that was, operating advertising at any significant scale, and we ranked them basically on an axis of, one side of the axis was, are you more client focused or more more self-focused, and it was, that actually became the kind of the driving separator. And most firms that were advertising were way up on the, ego focus and less about the client, less about results, less about any of that. And I, my takeaway was when I started to plot everything on the map, I was like, wow, there's white space in this market. And meaning there's this, part of the market that's not being underserved. And there, maybe was like one and a half competitors that were kind of in that, more client focused, less ego, stage or place. And so we decided to go for it. And, it's proved to be a successful, it was a good idea is my point. Sometimes, being yourself is the only thing you can do, right? I mean, it's very hard being somebody else. And I think some of these guys and gals who advertise, and for whatever reason, it's always the personal injury lawyers, they create this character and this persona. And it's not, I don't know them. I mean, it could be who they really are. Maybe this guy actually thinks he is Batman. I don't know. But it's just, that's my response to it. I think it's tacky. But it works for me because we of course have a brand that's very much real and different than what these guys are doing. So no, you will not see a Sam and Ash commercial during the Super Bowl. That's called a vanity play. It's a vanity play. That's all it is. It doesn't drive business. It just makes people talk about you and say, boy, they just love spending stupid money out there. Like nobody's looking at Kanye with his little ad that, he put that thing out, spent millions of dollars, filmed it on his iPhone with his little grills. Horrible stuff. Oh my gosh. Okay. On to better stuff. Politics. Let's get into it. So Bernie Sanders last night voted no on Tulsi Gabbard. This is huge. And it's huge because, Tulsi Gabbard has a history with Bernie Sanders. Now, if you're just joining us, let me quickly go back to, kind of repeating what I said before, because, back in 2016, Tulsi Gabbard blew up her career in the Democratic Party. She was vice president of the DNC at the time because she went to endorse Bernie over Hillary. She resigned in protest against Hillary, using all the different tricks to get the nomination in superdelegates and whatnot. So this is, right, this I'm just telling you, like this that's the history. And Bernie turned around and voted against Gabbard. And why? Because she's on Team Trump. That's all it is. It's absolutely astounding. It's absolutely astounding. Here's Tulsi Gabbard in February of 2016. So this is 8 years ago, right? 8 years ago. Here's Tulsi Gabbard with her declaration of allegiance, right, to Bernie Sanders and her disgust with the Democratic Party. I think it's important to remind ourselves of this.
As a vice chair of the DNC, I'm required to stay neutral in Democratic primaries, but I cannot remain neutral any longer. The stakes are just too high. That's why today I'm endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders to be our next president and commander-in-chief of the United States. We need a commander-in-chief who has foresight, who exercises good judgment, and who understands the need for a robust foreign policy which defends the safety and security of the American people, and who will not waste precious lives and money on interventionist wars of regime change. Such counterproductive wars undermine our national security and economic prosperity. As these elections continue across the country, the American people are faced with a very clear choice. We can elect a president who will lead us into more interventionist wars of regime change, or we can elect a president who will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. It's with this clear choice in mind that I'm resigning as vice chair of the DNC so that I can strongly support Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee for president of the United States.
There it is. Right? And it was the moral thing to do. Those of you who've heard me and followed me for some time, you know how I feel about the 2016 Democratic primary. I mean, Bernie got shafted. There's no other way of really putting it. So and Tulsi saw it, and she had, enough integrity and independence to criticize it. By the way, last year she went out and criticized Kamala Harris and the undemocratic approach that the Democratic Party took again in replacing Joe Biden with Kamala Harris. And her reward for that was being essentially put on a quiet skies, watch list, which is, it's not quite a do not fly list, but it really makes, you're on that list. You're going to go through extra security every time you fly. No TSA pre-check, obviously. You return from a foreign trip. You're going to, they're going to go through all your luggage. Big mess to somebody who is, a political person and travels a lot. So they did the level of despicable, targeting of Tulsi Gabbard is huge, but this is personal. And when I come back, I want to play for you a reaction that really stood out to me this morning. About from a Democratic operative who just a Bernie gal. Okay, she's not happy with Bernie Sanders. There are likely hundreds of thousands of Democrats that feel exactly like her. You do not want to miss this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right Show. We'll be back in just a moment. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Welcome back to the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Now, Tulsi Gabbard last night, this is the vote to advance out of committee. Obviously, things are now looking great for Tulsi, but last night, the vote, of course, Democrats throwing their best efforts to obstruct, including Bernie Sanders, who previously had Tulsi Gabbard endorse him during the 2016 Democrat primary, going so far as Tulsi, at least, withdrawing from her position in the DNC as vice chair of the DNC, and sabotaging, basically destroying her Democrat career to support Bernie over Hillary. So anyway, the rank and file Democratic voters have noticed this, and one such person went on. Let's see, this is former Democrat campaign operative Evan Barker. Well, this, I think, is very nicely put.
You voted no on Tulsi Gabbard today. And I gotta say something to you, because I supported you. I voted for you. I backed you. I canvassed for you. And you voted against Tulsi Gabbard, a woman who did the same. In fact, she did so much more. She basically sacrificed her future and her career in the Democratic Party to back you. And today, you voted against her. And for what? Because the Democrats have continued to perpetuate a smear invented by Hillary Clinton that was hoisted upon her because she dared do what was right at the time and back you over Hillary Clinton. Shame on you, Bernie Sanders. I'm breaking up with you forever. Like, forever. We're never, ever getting back together. Ever.
Even the Democrats are beginning to realize that their party is a complete fraud. See, we Republicans realize it. And the one thing that we Republicans have going for us is that our party actually does have a fair primary. The person with the most money and the banking, the backing of the party establishment isn't the victor, isn't automatically victorious. Doesn't work that way. Trump beat a field of candidates in 2016, right? Some, like Jeb Bush, had a ton of money in the bank. Trump in 2024, right, had the same thing happen, right? He was, we had a contested primary. I stand by the fact that I think it was a good thing. I think Trump needed to prove his legitimacy. I think that we Republicans can't be like the Democrats, so we didn't have an incumbent. Have an open primary. Trump beat everybody fair and square, even though the governor of Florida had 20 million or 30 million in the bank going into January of 2024. So this is just the Democratic Party is a joke, right? If it was up to the voters, Bernie Sanders would have won in 2016. Joe Biden was done in March in 2020. He was resurrected by the party. They chose Joe Biden. They felt Joe Biden was the best candidate to win. Okay, all right, so the rest is history. He did win. He eked it out. And by the way, every passing day of watching the kind of rot in Washington, I think, is a more and more compelling case for the fact that there was massive election interference in 2020. Biden ekes it out and is an absolute failure of a president. So then the Democratic Party does what? Oh, I know what they do. They go, oh, okay, Biden's fine, Biden's fine, Biden's fine. It's totally okay. Nothing to see here, Sam. Like, how dare you say he's mentally incapacitated? I have nothing but the best meetings with Joe Biden. He's incredible. He's the sharp as a tack. What are all the things that he said? They said sharp as a tack. He's leading meetings. He's asking probing questions, all this stuff. To suddenly, oh my gosh, he just literally collapsed during the debate. So now what? We're just going to quickly put in Kamala Harris, select her. No quick primary, no anything. Just the party puts Kamala Harris in. Complete failure. But the other failure is watching the people that Democrats thought were their heroes, like Bernie Sanders, reveal who they are. They've taken their mask off. He's a political hack. He's a limousine liberal. He's a, he's a multimillionaire communist. It's all talk. Everything that he does is talk. He is an absolute swamp monster. And the only person really in Washington who has come along in modern, times to be a reformer, more so than Reagan, is Donald Trump. And that's why they are obstructing him. Because Trump is a threat to Republicans. He's a threat to Democrats. He's a threat to the entire club that is Washington, D.C. And, you and I, we're just the, poor working saps that go to work and make a few bucks and pay our taxes every year. And we're supposed to just, pretend like we're participating in the democratic process and vote for your president. Sure, yeah, you like Trump, okay, vote for him. But when Trump comes into office, he's not allowed to actually control anything inside the government. He's not allowed to do that. Say the political actors in Washington, including many Republicans. So actually, a lot of you are frustrated because you're saying these confirmations are taking a long time. And look, I agree, like Kash Patel is needed. Like, number one, we got to get Kash into the FBI. But getting Tulsi's getting in, she's in. And so it's, but the silver lining to these things taking a long time is that we are revealing the rot in Washington. And one thing I want to bring up while we're talking about Washington rot is I see a lot of conservatives out there talk about term limits. And I have, because yesterday evening, A 76-year-old congressman, John Larson from Connecticut, he's a Democrat, had a little bit of a medical episode. He just froze for about a minute while speaking on the House floor. Here's what that looked like.
Don't worry, no one on the Republican side in the House and Senate who control both the House and Senate is going to speak up and challenge us.
Now, this does not look good. I mean, he's just frozen. He's kind of licking his lips. I mean, it's horrifying, right?
But we need to protect Americans' privacy and their social.
Okay. So that's an idea. That's what happened. People are talking about this and they're saying, well, we need term limits. And it comes on the heels of McConnell freezing, right? We know this. And Feinstein. My 10 cents on this is it's not, I want, God, Trump is great. If Trump was 70 and was in office right now, I would want Trump to be, or 50, I'd want Trump to be president for 8 terms if it was possible. Okay. I'm just saying. So my thing is capacity. Biden should have been removed from office because he was not, mentally fit. McConnell should be out of there. He's not mentally fit. Feinstein she didn't know who she was voting for. She wasn't mentally fit. I got to go. Top of the hour here. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. More on this when we come back.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky, host of the What's Right show. Welcome, friends, and happy Tuesday. So I want to finish a couple of thoughts about term limits, but real fast, let me just mention that Trump put out on Truth Social overnight a great tweet, which gives me great hope. What is this movement? Everything's the making something great again. So we, make America healthy again, MAHA, MSGA. Now, Trump didn't write this. What this acronym would be is making showers great again. Trump tweeted out, I am hereby instructing Secretary Lee Zeldin to immediately go back to my environmental orders, which were terminated by crooked Joe Biden, on water standards and flow pertaining to sinks, showers, toilets, washing machines, dishwashers, etc. And then Trump, for good measure, added that we need to go back to common sense standards on light bulbs. So if you're frustrated by your dinky shower head, there we have it. I understand. Look, Las Vegas here, we're a little low on water. We got to conserve. But, there are places in the country, like Florida, for example. They don't have a water problem in Florida. Leave the faucet on for, it doesn't matter. There's water everywhere. In fact, there's too much water. So it's just low flow shower heads in Florida. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. Okay. Yeah, there was a congressman yesterday who had a moment, a episode, right? An older guy and, has some health problems and he's railing against Trump. And in the middle of his, prepared remarks on the floor of the House of Representatives, he freezes. Now, I played the clip and look, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we had Dianne Feinstein, basically showing up to vote and you'd have an aide saying, oh, that's a yes. And in like plain view of the cameras, Feinstein was obviously not fit to exercise her voice, her own in her own will, make decisions for herself as a sitting U.S. senator. That's one of 100 people making critical votes in our country. And so the people say about these. The cry, of course, comes for term limits, and I just wanted to drive this point home because I'm actually not for term limits. I've always opposed the idea of arbitrarily, limiting a person in a position. What if a state, for example, like here in Nevada, we have term limits for our officers, but for example, we have a treasurer right now, happens to be a Democrat, but he's doing a great job and he's excellent at the work that he does. And I know Zach well, and I can vouch for it. And the fact of the matter is, that guy, he ought to be able to be treasurer for as long as he wants because he's good at it. He's great in his position. There's some senators that are phenomenal as long as they can do their job. Biden should have been in his position his entire term. I mean, at some point, somebody should have removed him. And that, of course, didn't happen. The presidency is a little bit different because there's a procedure for that. And internally, they decided not to do it. So here's, we have the clip. Oh, good. We've got the Feinstein. Well, this was just, here she is. This is July 27th, 2023. And here's Feinstein, and she's coming in for a vote. All right.
Senator Feinstein.
Say aye. Pardon me? Aye. Yeah.
Her aide is telling her to say aye.
I would like to support a yes vote on this. It provides $823 billion. That's an increase of $26 billion for the Department of Defense.
She's reading this.
And it funds priorities submitted.
And the aide is telling her, just say aye.
Okay, just aye.
Thank you.
And she's literally reading from a script of her reasons for supporting the bill. And this is on, in plain view of cameras. Look, I'm not even for age limits, right? People say that during the campaign, right, as soon as they stuck Kamala Harris in last year, they said, oh, Trump is too old. I don't care. Trump is sharper than most people my age. I'd rather have Trump is quicker on the take than the average adult, and by miles. So it's a ridiculous claim to say that, that Trump ought to be, that a guy like Trump ought to be age limited out. So term limits, age limits, don't really matter. Capacity. This is what, ought to happen. And look, Mitch McConnell, it's not all about Democrats, not just Dianne Feinstein. Mitch McConnell is not okay. Here's Mitch McConnell's recent freeze. This was back, let's see, also in July, funny enough, July 26th, one day before Feinstein, the Feinstein clip that we just played. This was Mitch McConnell.
This week has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
and you can see John Thune's behind him, who is now the Senate Majority Leader.
Okay, Mitch.
So he's...
Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office?
Yeah, let's just go back to your office, Mitch. I mean, this is painful. This is really it's awful. And him, look, his family allowing him to stay in this position. Same problem that we had with Biden, with Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and the whole Biden cabal. Putting Joe through everything that he, just having him be there just so they could have the power and the lifestyle. Sick stuff. So I think this is, obviously this is an issue that's the response to all of this, right? It's not term limits, it's capacity. Does a person have capacity? So, it has to happen. Now, Trump, let me tell you, we're going to get here to his press conference yesterday. Speaking of capacity, the guy is able to, and he has every day interacted with the media, and he's doing a phenomenal job. I think we've legitimately forgotten what it's like to have an accessible president who is responding in real time to issues and to reporters and freewheeling. But the thing is, it's not just throwing stuff out there. It has some thought behind it. Now, this is one of the one time when a lot of people thought that Trump was freewheeling was with his Gaza plan. Remember last week, met with Netanyahu, and Trump throws out there, maybe we'll just take over Gaza. We'll clear everybody out. We'll make it beautiful. And then, we'll see. And the entire, political world lost their minds collectively. You can't do that. Did Trump just say he was going to ethnically cleanse Gaza? So people were all getting the vapors. And, Netanyahu looked at him, kind of a puzzling look. And I remember what I said right after it. I said, you know what? Trump just completely did a reframe. Everybody at this point was looking at this intractable conflict between Palestinians and Israelis. And Trump goes, you know what? I'll just take it. I'm in charge now. I'll take it over. And presented a third way that nobody had ever considered. Now, another part of this, that the immediate result of this, and why I suspect this wasn't just a freewheeling comment, that it was intended to create and provoke a discussion, particularly ahead of some critical meetings this week, is that the entire Arab world immediately moved to decry this and say, no, this can't happen. Because one of Trump's suggestions was, maybe the people in Gaza should, Gazans should go and be absorbed in Jordan or into Egypt. And everybody, I'm seeing these giant statements have come out from the Saudis. And by the way, and liberal commentators are looking at this. Look, never has America had such a strong rebuke from our ally in the region, Saudi Arabia, like Trump just got. And I'm reading these quote unquote rebukes, and I'm like, whoa, Trump touched a nerve, and they're all freaking out because nobody wants the Gazans. And Trump just forced everybody to admit it. That's the beauty of it. Trump got everybody there to admit that they don't want them. And the reason they don't want them is that they're not peace-loving people. They're, if not terrorists themselves, and certainly terrorist supporters. Jordan doesn't want them. Egypt doesn't want them. Egypt is by the way, moving tanks to the border in fear that the Gazans are going to come south and that there's going to be an effort to enter Egypt unlawfully, which, Egypt has the most controlled border that Gaza has, the most barbed wire, the biggest walls, the most amount of concrete, and other measures are on, but between Gaza and Egypt. It's wild stuff. But there was a meeting today, and we'll get to this. There's a meeting at the White House. The King of Jordan, and boy, did the tune change. Okay, be right back after this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. So much winning, folks. I can't contain myself. Greetings, friends. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Yes. The King of Jordan met today with Donald Trump at the White House. And guess what? They're taking in some Palestinians, Robbie. Not many, 2,000. Apparently very ill and cancer-stricken children from Gaza will be accepted by Jordan. But this is, I have to mention this, right? This is a week after Trump gets out there and says, I'm going to redevelop Gaza. And these Gazans that are here are going to have to go somewhere. And then we hear from the media, right, that, oh my gosh, Trump just stepped in it. First off, it's genocide. Second, he's poked his finger in the eye of all of our allies. And then Trump just lets it sit. because every reasonable person realizes that the cacophony of protest from all the Islamic countries that don't want to take the Palestinians speaks for itself. It tells us the truth about the Palestinians. And then the next step is that suddenly King Jordan goes like, oh, well, we'll take 2,000 of the cancer kids for 500. You know, we'll do that. We'll get in some of these people. And it's happening, folks. This is how you do it. So Trump knows exactly what he's doing. Now, the other development, of course, late yesterday was that Trump had a freewheeling press conference. And in it, he threatened, he flat out threatened Hamas, because of course Hamas has not performed on the prisoner release, the terms of the ceasefire. And Israel now is also threatening a deadline. So this was, Trump comes in and he basically says, look, if I'm gonna throw a date out there. Now, he made it sound like it was coming off the top of his head, but it really, it really was very specific. So here's reporter asks him if the hostage deal should be off, if it should be suspended, and Trump's response is this.
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that because that's Israel's decision. But as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday. And if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday at 12 o'clock, and after that, I would say all hell is going to break out. And I don't think they're going to do it. I think a lot of them are dead. I think a lot of the hostages are dead. I think it's a great human tragedy what's happened, how people can be that mean to do. I mean, the one guy was laughing when a hostage he thought his family was alive, found out the family was dead, and his captor, so to speak, started laughing because he thought it was so funny. This is a different group of people. No, I would say Saturday at 12. We want them all back. I'm speaking for myself. Israel can override it, but from myself, Saturday at 12 o'clock, and if they're not here, all hell is going to break out.
And then, of course, reporters wanted him to say, what does that mean? What does that mean, Mr. Trump?
Mr. President, when you say all hell is going to break loose, are you speaking about retaliation from
You'll find out, and they'll find out, too. Hamas will find out what I mean.
Mr. President,
they're going to find out what I mean. These are sick people, and they'll find out what I mean Saturday at 12 o'clock.
But no involvement.
I think Trump's getting ready for that redevelopment plan. Just, hey, you got till 12 noon on Saturday. Try me. Just try me. I don't know what he means. Not going to, but and then the best part is, Netanyahu shows up and is like, 12 noon, it's 12 noon. That's what it is. So then, of course, he gets asked about what he meant about making Palestinians leave Gaza.
We've spoken to a lot of Palestinians. They would love to leave Gaza if they could find a place. We've spoken to a lot of Palestinians. They would love to leave Gaza if they could find a place to be. And I've spoken to various leaders of various countries in the not so, distant area from where we're talking about, the Gaza Strip. And I think they were very positive about providing land. What we need is land. And if we could build a nice place for people to live safely, everybody in Gaza would do it. They've been persecuted, they've been spit on, they've been treated like trash, and they would love to get out of Gaza. But until now, they never had an alternative. Now they have an alternative. And as far as Hamas is concerned, you're seeing the real Hamas now with the hostages.
Yeah, and so what does this mean? I mean, he says he's had positive conversations, and I promise you, folks, the way to read this is that every single one of these Islamic countries, Saudi Arabia included, that is protesting loudly and criticizing Trump publicly is saying different things in private. This is just how that world works. But I can tell you that the Saudis both respect and fear the United States now under Donald J. Trump. There is no comparison between how they view us today versus how they viewed us, a year ago when non-compos mentis Joe Biden was president. So absolutely night and day difference. No, I mean this is America's back. I mean, this is happening, right? This is real. It matters, and leadership matters, and Trump's poking at this. And here's my people will say to you and say, wait, what do you think Trump's really doing? Sam, what do you really think? This is stupid. He's just making it up as he goes along. Why not try something new? When it comes to peace in the Middle East and the Palestinian question, why not try something new? Why not make some of the neighboring Arab states finally eat their words? Meaning, why not make them pony up and take care of their own people? After all, these are Arabs. They're supposedly persecuted by Israel, blah, blah, blah. Take them in. Help them out. But no, they understand what the problem is. So it's forcing this all out in the open. By the way, great news. Unrelated to any of this, the folks over there in FEMA, including the CFO who authorized the $60 million in payments to the luxury hotels for migrants in New York City, have all been fired. So, big deal. Okay, it's going to happen. Slowly but surely, we're going to clean this mess up.